Breaking news this hour as a federal judge in Portland has granted a restraining order blocking President Trump's call-up of the National Guard. The state attorney general wrote, "The court agreed with our position. Today's ruling is a healthy check on the president. It reaffirms what we already knew. Portland is not the president's war-torn fantasy." These are protesters today gathering outside an ICE facility there. Also today, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker said that President Trump gave him an ultimatum: call up 300 Illinois National Guard members or he would do it for him. The news comes amid growing tension between Pritzker and Trump. At Hexas All Generals meeting earlier this week, Trump mocked Pritzker, calling him a stupid governor. Pritzker then had this to say about Trump.
There is something genuinely wrong with this man, and the 25th Amendment ought to be invoked.
Emma and Jason are here with us tonight. We have Emma Vigeland, Jason Selvig. So, Emma, let's start with you. What do you make of the court's ruling about Portland?
Well, it's a very exciting development, and it's long overdue here because this has been an absolutely unchecked use of presidential power for quite a while at this point. The attempt to use the National Guard to test the limits of the Constitution. Trump is clearly trying to do that. So I'm encouraged that the courts are stepping up here. But we know that the Supreme Court is where this is eventually going to have to go. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court has handed down a variety of different rulings that basically rubber stamp the Trump administration and their illegal actions, including this horrific decision that they had earlier last week or earlier this week on USAID, which said that, OK, even if Congress appropriates these funds, the president has the authority to rescind them, which is undercutting the very power of the purse and the authority that the Constitution granted to Congress. So we cannot rely on the courts solely here. The Democrats also have to stand up and show a united front. And I think Pritzker has given other Democratic governors a bit of a blueprint because of how well he has responded here.
How has that been, that response? Walk us through what has worked for him that others, well, to be fair, with the exception of Maryland, there really isn't another one that has kind of been tested in the way that J.B. Pritzker has. Gavin Newsom has. He's been effective as well. He's taken it to the courts. He's very good at the messaging right now. He is doing something I think you know very well, trolling Trump in a way that is pretty effective. And we can talk about that, whether that messaging is working or not. But what is J.B. Pritzker doing that is making him successful right now in this fight?
I guess my argument is that it's been more successful than, in my view, what Newsom has done. I'm getting a little bit tired of some of the trolling and the gaming language. I mean, how much can we appeal to, I guess, Gavin Newsom's son's favorite shows? I mean, that seems to be what drives what he's been doing on social media. What Pritzker has done has been a lot more serious, and he stood shoulder to shoulder with Brandon Johnson in anticipation of the National Guard being called, as opposed to where I felt like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom were a little bit more on their back foot.
Jason, what did you make of the scenes we watched out of Chicago this week? I mean, the video that DHS released, glamorizing it, and turning it into this basically opportunity for national propaganda.
Yeah.
But the scenes and the testimony out of Chicago have horrified basically everyone that we have spoken to.
Yeah.
What do you make of the point that we've reached?
Well, I think it's sad where we are right now. And not only the scene there, the raids that happened, the military-style raids that happened on, U.S. citizens as well, who were being taken out, children taken out in the middle of the night, separated from their parents in the middle of the night. I can't imagine the trauma that they experienced there, but also on the ground at some of these protests where the media has been targeted. With, I believe there was a CBS reporter, a local CBS reporter in Chicago said because of the pepper spray, a pepper bomb, I think it was, that she was throwing up for hours. And I think a reverend there was praying and was shot with pepper bullets, I think 5 or 6 pepper bullets. So it's a really scary time. And I think it's an important time to remember, protest is patriotism. You need to speak up and talk now and talk about what's happening here and make your voices heard, because it's really, really scary when you see scenes like this.
I don't think we can do justice almost to how horrible it was the other night. I just want to go back to Governor Pritzker's statement. He had a statement just about children And he said, following widespread reports of children being zip-tied, separated from their parents, and detained for several hours at an apartment building in South Shore of Chicago. That is insane. And this is happening in the middle of the night. Some of the reports said that the children were unclothed. How is this happening, and how can Donald Trump think that there's any electoral benefit to this whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, the Chicago Sun-Times did excellent reporting and said that some of the children were naked in the streets. And you saw broken windows. They basically trashed the entire apartment complex. And you heard the testimony of people who lived there, American citizens who lived with some of these Venezuelan folks who had come to the United States for refuge. And they said, you know, we together cleaned up the hallways of the apartment because the landlord was so negligent that we as a community came together, and they were our neighbors, and we would use our phone app to translate how to communicate with one another and do tasks. And for me, I hear that story, and it's the most American thing that I can think of. In also the flip side of it, the darkness, which is this apparently slumlord who is blaming supposed gang activity where very little evidence exists to justify basically being negligent towards those tenants, which include folks who might be here as immigrants or maybe are undocumented, maybe are just seeking asylum, and also lower income Americans. And so the communities that are being targeted right now by these ICE raids, which include both immigrants and American citizens. The American citizens that are being affected here are also the least likely to speak up because they're already victims of over-policing and are usually in cities and are black or brown. And so much like what I see here with ICE is the federalizing of broken windows policing, which has led to mass incarceration for so many black people in this country, and using those tactics in an immigration and national security context, which should scare all of us. It's fascistic.
Although credit to many of those community members who actually did go face on camera, speak to local reporters. We played video earlier of one woman saying that she overheard an officer say, F those kids. The same kids, Elise, that you're describing, who were zip-tied, some of them without clothes, probably freezing in the middle of the night. Right. I mean, what can we even compare this to, in your view? I mean, for me, one of the first thoughts that I had was the MOVE bombing in Philadelphia in 1985, when you just think of a completely disproportionate and insane seeming use of, power against a residential American community. But did this bring up anything for you?
I mean, you think of other disproportionate uses of violence, like, I mean, the Tulsa Race Massacre, I know it's not completely analogous, or say like COINTELPRO and the FBI going after black and civil rights activists and things like that, but not really. I mean, the comparisons that I make are the Gestapo.
Let me ask you about the messaging around all of this and what is happening right now, because what you're seeing is a bit of an information warfare that's taking place. This administration was quick to put out a slick propaganda video with the bangs and the action and kind of like the Hollywood movie part of it, then kind of showing some people being kind of whisked off, even the way that they chose who they're showcasing, zip-tied, stripped of their clothes. And I'm wondering how this is resonating with the Republican base, the consumers of this propaganda. You speak to a lot of them because you go to these rallies, you go to these events, you've covered them for years. How is this dehumanization playing out with Americans who voted for Donald Trump, or Americans who are consuming this propaganda and maybe like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this?
Or is this what they wanted?
Yeah.
Well, I think if they saw some of the videos that we saw and they saw some of the images that we saw, that I want to give a lot of them the benefit of the doubt that they would see those and be disgusted by it and be like, this is not who we are as a country. But unfortunately, a lot of people are getting their news from a totally different set of news sources, and a lot of people are just getting their news from Donald Trump and from videos that he puts out and his administration puts out. So we've talked about this before on the show about some of the Trump supporters who will chant things like "Ice, Ice, Baby," and they look at ICE as like this heroic squad of people who are like saving the country from this evil band of like drug dealers. That's all the people. But if you look at the actual videos of it, which I'm afraid a lot of these Trump supporters are not watching, they're not seeing the same things you and I are, I think you would be swayed. There's still going to be the people who are going to support Kristi Noem, support Donald Trump, no matter what. But I do think if enough people can see what's happening, they will be moved by it.
Well, I do think it's a moment like the child separation policy first term where
an awakening
outcry, it did lead to anger and
I don't know. I feel like the raw emotion of that moment has passed in America, and people still voted for Trump under the banner of mass deportations. I keep reminding myself, I'm a little bit like
the signs at the rally.
I'm a little bit like you in the sense that every time I want to give people the benefit or give Americans the benefit of the doubt that they would see this and say, hey, this is wrong. This is not what we want. We don't want to see Black Hawk helicopters being used against apartment buildings. Then you realize, like, wait a minute, they also stood in a big, arena with mass deportation signs chanting, deport them now.